You've been talking to her for weeks, maybe months. The conversations used to flow effortlessly. Her responses came quickly, and you felt this undeniable connection building between you. But now something has shifted. Her texts are shorter. She takes longer to reply. The energy feels different, distant, and that voice in your head whispers the same devastating conclusion. She's losing interest. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about this situation is wrong? What if her sudden change in behavior isn't about losing interest at all? What if it's actually the most important test you'll ever face in this relationship? And here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. There are 3 specific stages to this test that most men completely miss. The third stage is where everything either falls apart or comes together perfectly, but you need to understand the first 2 stages first, or you'll never recognize when stage 3 is happening. Think about it. You meet someone incredible. The chemistry is electric. Everything feels perfect. Then, just when you start to get comfortable, when you begin to envision a future together, she pulls back. Not completely, but enough to make you question everything. Your first instinct is panic. You start analyzing every conversation, dissecting every word choice, searching for clues about what went wrong. But here's what's actually happening in stage 1 of her test. She's creating emotional distance to see how you handle uncertainty. Most men fail this stage spectacularly. They respond to her distance by becoming more available, more desperate, more needy. They double text. They over-explain. They try to force conversations that used to happen naturally. But there's a critical mistake they're making that guarantees failure, and I'll explain exactly what it is in a moment. But first, you need to understand why she's testing you at all. This isn't some manipulative game designed to hurt you. This is her subconscious way of determining whether you're the man she thought you were, or just another guy who crumbles under pressure. Here's the truth that most men never understand. Women don't just fall for your charm, or your looks, or your success. They fall for your emotional strength, your consistency, your ability to remain centered when everything around you feels uncertain. When she pulls back, she's asking a fundamental question. Are you the kind of man who panics when things get uncomfortable, or are you the kind of man who stays grounded in your own worth regardless of external circumstances? Now, stage 1 is just the beginning. If you somehow manage to not panic during her initial pullback, you move into stage 2. And stage 2 is where things get really interesting, because this is where she tests something completely different. In stage 2, she's not just testing your emotional stability anymore, she's testing your authenticity. She wants to know if the confidence you showed in stage 1 was real, or if you were just putting on an act. Here's how stage 2 usually plays out. After you've shown that you can handle her distance without becoming needy, she might suddenly become warm again. She might reach out, seem interested, maybe even initiate plans. And this is where most men who passed stage 1 completely blow it. They think the test is over. They think they've won. So they drop their guard, become overly available again, and start acting like the relationship is now secure. But here's the critical insight. Stage 2 is actually the hardest part of the test, because now she's watching to see if your confidence was genuine or if it was just a strategy you used to get her back. She's observing whether you can maintain your centered energy even when she's giving you positive attention. The men who fail stage 2 make one crucial mistake. They change their behavior based on her behavior. When she was distant, they learn to be independent. When she's warm, they become dependent again. This inconsistency tells her everything she needs to know about your character. But there's something even more important happening in stage 2 that most men miss entirely. She's not just testing your consistency, she's testing whether you understand the deeper dynamic at play here. See, what she's really evaluating is whether you can give her what she needs most in a relationship: emotional security. And emotional security doesn't come from constant attention or validation. It comes from knowing that the man you're with remains himself, regardless of circumstances. When you pass stage 2 by maintaining your authentic confidence even when she's being warm, you prove that your strength isn't dependent on her behavior. You show her that she can trust you to be emotionally stable even when the relationship goes through natural ups and downs. But here's where it gets really interesting. Everything I've told you about stages 1 and 2 is actually preparation for stage 3. And stage 3 is where everything either falls apart completely or comes together in the most beautiful way possible. Stage 3 is the commitment test. This is where she evaluates whether you're actually relationship material or just someone who's good at playing the early dating game. In stage 3, she's not pulling back anymore, she's not being inconsistent, Instead, she's watching to see if you can handle the transition from the exciting uncertainty of early dating to the deeper intimacy of a real relationship. This is where she observes whether you're capable of emotional leadership, whether you can create the kind of safety that allows her to be vulnerable, whether you understand that passing her earlier tests was just the entry exam for something much more significant. Here's what most men don't realize. Everything she was testing in stages 1 and 2 was actually preparing both of you for this moment. Your ability to stay centered during uncertainty, your authenticity under pressure, your emotional consistency regardless of her behavior, all of that was building toward this question. Can you handle the responsibility of being the man she falls in love with? Because here's the thing about women that most men never understand. They don't just want to know that you can handle their tests. They want to know that you can handle their heart. When you truly understand this, everything changes. You stop seeing her behavior as something to decode or manipulate. You start seeing it as communication. You realize that every test she gives you is actually her way of asking, are you safe for me to love? And when you can answer that question with your actions, not just your words, something magical happens. The testing stops. The games end. The real relationship begins. But here's what makes this so challenging. You have to genuinely be the man she's testing for, not just pretend to be him. You can't fake this kind of emotional maturity. You can't strategically appear confident while secretly obsessing over every interaction. Real confidence comes from understanding your own value. It comes from knowing that you're a good man with a lot to offer, regardless of whether this particular woman recognizes it. It comes from having a life rich enough that one person's behavior doesn't derail your entire emotional state. This is why men who understand and pass all 3 stages don't just win her over temporarily. They earn her genuine respect and admiration. They prove that they're capable of the kind of emotional leadership that makes women feel safe to be vulnerable. When you pass her complete test, she stops evaluating and starts investing. She stops wondering if you're the right man and starts building a future with you. She stops protecting her heart and starts sharing it. The next time you feel that familiar distance, that shift in energy that makes your stomach drop, remember what's really happening. She's not losing interest. She's giving you the opportunity to prove that you're different from every other man who came before you. The question isn't whether she's testing you. She is. The question is whether you understand what she's really testing for and whether you're ready to become the man who passes.